As you can see from the little description above this video, this week we're talking about studies in contemporary society, race, ethnicity. And as you can see, if you look through that, there are a lot of issues that fall in this category. And obviously we can't touch on all. But again, what we're doing here is, or what I'm doing here is providing a container, helping provide context, an Anglican context, perhaps for how we think about these kinds of issues, or how we have thought about and dealt with them in the past. Before I get into a lot of content, I want to remind you that, as I said, I think last week, the first three content pieces were, our Anglican tripod of scripture, tradition, and reason, and then those fold into theology, which we did last week. And the assignment last time, was really, what's your theology of creation, your theology of stewardship of creation? That was, I think, the major piece of what you were having to develop. And now we move into these next 3 weeks. These last 3 weeks of content orientation, into what I think I mentioned last time, a prophet, pastor, and priest, or prophet, priest, and pastor. And clearly the situation with the studies in contemporary society falls into that prophet mode. And that's not necessarily something that all of us are particularly comfortable doing, and that's okay. Some of us who are called to ministry find ourselves very easily moving into that role. Others of us are better at being a pastor. Some of us are very good at being priests. And so this is not to say you've got to be really, really good at being prophetic. And I'll just illustrate that with a couple of stories from my own background. I was in Berkeley for a long time, and Berkeley's a liberal place, and the churches in Berkeley are liberal churches. And so I remember, 12, 13 years ago, I guess, and I can't remember which. I think it was the last President Bush, not the first President Bush, but the last President Bush, was doing something that most of us on the progressive side of the spectrum thought was pretty horrendous. And I remember being moved to step into the pulpit. I was preaching at St. Mark's Episcopal Church across the street from the UC Berkeley campus. And I preached a sermon that was probably about as prophetic as I have ever done. It was strong, it was critical, and I got really good response from a lot of people in the congregation. I can tell you, though, I was physically quivering in the pulpit as I was doing this. And as I reflected on that with my spiritual director, because it was such an odd sense, as I reflected on that, I originally thought I was quivering because I knew I was doing the right thing. I was filled with passion and vim, and I was in the right, which I probably was. But I think I was quivering because I was outside my normal mode of being a minister. And so I say that on the one hand because it's an example of being put in a situation where you know you need to do something, you need to say something, but it may not be the most comfortable thing for you to do. And I think that is characteristic of a lot of maybe Anglican social justice stuff, is we're conflicted about how we go about these things. The second example is in Berkeley. A lot of us campus ministers had buildings that we administered, and that were where we ran our programs and things like that. So right up the street from Canterbury House was Wesley, the Wesley House, or Wesley Foundation. And when I was early in my years there. This was with the first President Bush. Um, we started bombing um, Iran or Iraq. I can't even remember which one. And the campus pastor there, very very socially liberal guy, social justice passionate, um, put up a sign on his building that said "Dropping bombs is a sin," and you know, and what in Berkeley, what that said was, we're on your side of the issue. You know, we in the church are on your side, the liberal anti-war side of the issue. And I spoke to Schuyler about it, who was the pastor or the campus pastor there, and my if you haven't already cottoned on to this, my way of operating is to encourage conversation, to encourage dialogue, to encourage discussion, and when there's an issue that needs to be addressed. And that's my style, and I've owned it. And Schuyler's was confrontive, and so I asked him. I said, you know, Schuyler, what's let's be clear about what you're trying to do, you know, with your sign. Are you just trying to say we're one of you, or are you going to encourage discussion? Because the people that you might want to gain to your side could just as easily look to the Bible and say, well, dropping bombs isn't a sin. We should go in and we should cream these people just like they did in Judges or, you know, First and Second Chronicles. And so he took that to heart, and the sign came down. You know, I had no authority over him, but he saw the point about you can be a strong social justice advocate, but if you can't, but you kind of might need to weigh that against your ability to influence someone else's thinking or opinion or consideration. So, you know, those are my two stories about being a prophet. One where I was working with an Episcopal congregation, and one where there was another prophet calling society to account. But I was sort of a prophet to him. So again, we're talking now about issues in contemporary society. How have we addressed those as a church, as an Anglican tradition? What does that look like? This is where we take our overall theology, like the theology of creation, and move it into real live situations.